Hey, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. Not enough sleep, and I don't know how to change my name here. Here we go.
I didn't get enough sleep either, and I'm like wishing I had put up an actual background. So
Can
it
you
was.
do it now?
I guess I can, or I can
Go
just
into
move to a different part of my room that's not right here.
but you
Well,
can you
it's-
can put a picture behind you.
I could. I don't really have a giant picture though, so I think
No,
I'm.
but I mean like with Zoom, you put it in the preferences.
Oh, that like weird fake.
Yeah, I have one.
I
You
guess
see
I
it?
could do that. Oh, that's okay. That's what
This
that
is a
is.
fake background.
Maybe I'll just like move over here instead. I don't know. I guess I could do that. I don't know why I'm like no fake background.
It's fine. Yeah, so I'm exhausted. Got up at like 3 a.m. and couldn't sleep.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thing going on myself, except it wasn't getting up. It was more like I'm still up at 3 a.m. and I shouldn't be because.
Oh, you didn't even get to sleep at all. Yeah, I've been waking up at 3. I don't know if it's because I'm working remotely. No,
Mm,
I think it is because I think like work has invaded my sacred space.
yeah,
So my
yeah,
hypervigilance has been triggered. I mean, that's my best theory. Um,
yeah. I don't know. I'm really bad at like being an adult now. The pandemic, I just kind of regressed to my old habits, and now I don't want to change.
what's
So
your definition of being an adult? What does an adult do?
like going to bed when I should because I just work better at night. So, I did sleep, but I went to bed at 4 when I should be going to bed at like 1 and,
Yeah,
just
it's hard to parent
that.
yourself when you're creative because the creative is really the kid, I think.
Yeah,
And
and it comes out at night. Like I need that time when I'm just kind of puttering around and there's no specified thing I'm supposed to do. That's when I get my best ideas.
yeah,
So,
I'm the same way. I like my wife doesn't like me up, but I liked being up, and I try to say, at least I'm not out of the house.
right.
I'm home, but I'm up at 3 a.m. or whatever. But
Right.
you make compromises when you're
Yeah.
married.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just like stopped my Zoom account because I had um I had it where I was paying because I wanted to do one when I had a lot of guests talking about my film. So, I'm just not. I had a lot of coffee, but I'm like,
I know my coffee hasn't really kicked in either.
I don't think it will. I think it's like my lack of sleep is like the coffee's no good. All right, well,
I know it doesn't work now. You blew it.
okay, this is going to be a spacey interview. I guess we're
That's
just going to have to
fine.
accept that.
That's fine. I
It's
have no problem with that. Probably better that way.
I think it'll be different. It'll be different. This is as and because this is Asmodeus, some demon
Oh,
that I think possessed me a few years ago.
right.
But it's like I have these Goetia cards. It's like they're tarot cards, but they're all these demons from the Goetia. So, if any bad luck occurs, visits me,
Yeah.
you can say, well, Carrie was delving into the Goetia, so he asked for what he was asking for it. If I start to blame anybody else, just say, no, you put this on yourself, Carrie. You're
Well, I suppose
delving with
that
darkness.
probably is true, but I hope that doesn't happen because that sounds like a really unfortunate state that I wouldn't want to even have to be talking about or thinking about.
Well, I just feel like I've already gone through the darkness, recovering from major depression and also this pandemic, and like
Right.
maybe I'm just like trying to be macho and go like, hey, I've conquered you guys before when you didn't have a name, you know.
Right.
But so I'm just gonna interview you as if I don't even know you.
Okay.
So as an artist, what do you do?
Well, I compose music, I write songs, I write rock songs, and I teach them to my band, and then we record them in the studio or, ourselves, but usually in the studio. And then I do a lot of kind of production stuff, and then I send it to my sort of producer mixer, who is Kramer. So I send it to Noise Miami down in Fort Lauderdale, and Kramer does just magical things and post-production and mixing and mastering and makes it sound wonderful. And then I release it, and I do shows, and hopefully people come and see the band.
So where can people hear your music?
Well, they can hear it pretty much anywhere. You mean like live or recorded music?
Recorded, like
yeah, anywhere. Spotify, YouTube, any of the normal outlets.
And how you pronounce your band name? Is it Luminatrix?
Luminatrix.
Luminatrix.
Yeah.
All right.
And so yeah, we have channels on all the usual outlets.
Platforms. Yeah.
Platforms.
So how did it start with you artistically?
Well, I started playing music when I was very young. I started playing music when I was about 6 or 7, and I started learning classical music, and I would go to classical music school after.
What instrument?
Well, piano.
Yeah.
And theory. They taught me a lot of theory. It was part of the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York. They had like a branch that kids could do, and so I did that, and I learned a lot of music theory. I learned a little bit of vocal stuff, and mostly classical piano.
Did you have a favorite classical stuff?
Well,
was it more like you were part of a curriculum, or was it a passion yet?
Well, it wasn't a passion because I didn't know why it should be a passion. And I kind of didn't like the discipline. I didn't like anyone telling me what to do. And I didn't like, my father saying, we expect you to practice your piano for 20 minutes in the afternoon, because I really just didn't want to be told what to do about anything. So I really resisted that at first, but I also enjoyed it.
Were they musicians, or were they like, this is something we want a well-rounded kid, or were they musicians or fans?
Well, my dad was not a musician, but we do have a lot of musicians on both sides of the family. My mom, her family was all music teachers. But my grandmother really kind of dropped the ball, and so my mom learned music, but she wasn't a professional. Like,
did your grandmother have aspirations to be professional, and it didn't work out, or?
No. My grandmother was a painter, and her mom was a music teacher, and she played the guitar and the piano and the lute. And my grandmother just went in a different direction. But then on my dad's side, his grandmother was a vaudeville star, and she was a vaudeville performer her whole life. And then she later opened vaudeville theaters in Montana. And she started as a child. She was a singer and a dancer and a comedian. And she also she did a male impersonation act as part of her show. So we have photos of her dressed as a man, which led to me asking my aunt, like, was she transgender? Is there more to this? And my aunt said, no, this was just a really common vaudeville thing. And we're sure it wasn't about that, but it's just kind of an interesting detail.
Were your parents artists as professions, or no?
Well, no, they were teachers. They were academics. They were
what did they teach? Oh yeah, what did they teach?
History and English.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
So yeah, I was really brought up in an academic environment. So yeah, they weren't trying to do music as a profession.
But they were probably saw it as part of being in a well-rounded, and maybe, I don't know, or maybe as a
Well,
discipline.
I
Yeah.
don't know. My dad isn't alive anymore, so I can't
Yeah.
ask him, but I really wonder why he did push me into it, because I'm grateful. I feel like it did give me a discipline I needed, and that without that, um, life would not have been as wonderful as it has been. I really needed music, and um, it turned out to be something that I really feel um, is the only interest I have that kind of presents me with a challenge that I can engage with and not get bored with.
Yeah, what did music, when did it stop being like something you were told to do, and when it became something that you were drawn to and wanted to do?
Well, I liked the classical music, and in answer to your earlier question, I liked Mozart. I really liked Bartok. Um, just a lot of odd sort of Eastern European stuff I thought was cool. And I had a music teacher who was teaching me Bartok as a kid, which I didn't realize was very sort of unusual and cool.
Yeah.
So I think around seventh grade, I was just like, okay, no more piano, because really, again, I just didn't want my parents telling me what to do. And then it changed when I found out about the Ramones and the Talking Heads, and I started going out to see bands, and I went to see the Talking Heads, and then I just started playing their music on a bass.
What album were
It
they
was
touring with?
Stop Making Sense.
Stop Making Sense? Okay.
Yeah, so I saw them, and I don't remember what Ramones album it was. The Ramones was always kind of the same show. And the Replacements came around that time, and also a lot of bands from the New York garage scene were coming to Rochester to play, because we had some good clubs, and we were kind of on the way west. So I made new friends, and then soon I had a fake ID that I got from my friends, and then it was just kind of all over. And so I started playing bass around that time. I got a bass lesson from a friend of mine at school, and that was my only bass lesson. And so
I always underestimate the bass. My ear would always go with the treble and the guitar and the lead of the guitar, and I'm writing songs and I'm wondering, why isn't there any push? And I'm like, I'm not putting bass on my recordings, and I because the bass can sometimes, when I do put the bass on, it can sometimes transform the whole song. Like, and
yeah,
it's something that doesn't necessarily hit my consciousness, but is so important
right.
in the music. And I mean, you play with the root, I guess, but you can also be creative. Do you have any favorite bass players, or any theory
Well,
about bass?
I don't really play bass that much anymore. I mean, I will on recordings, but I've kind of left that as an instrument. But when I was playing, my theory was just really to keep it simple. I don't really believe in it being an elaborate thing, and I think it just is glue. It's like peanut butter. I think there's a lot of stuff in music that's like that, where you have like layers of things, and people really never consciously hear them, but it brings an atmosphere. It creates an effect. So
And it thickens it sonically, and it gives it the bottom end, and it's the
yeah,
rhythm section with the drums and so forth. Were you
right. So
always, were you one of the bass players who's like, the drummer and me we're locked together, or were you conscious of the whole instrumentation of the
yeah, I
band?
think I mean both. I have to be. And but yeah, I always did try to kind of lock in with the drummer, and specifically with the kick drum. And that was good over the years. I did a lot of playing in bands. I wasn't really starting in rock as a bass player, I guess, was kind of
Kind of your
I
introduction
didn't
to
I didn't
the
even really
world? Yeah.
realize, like, I didn't realize you could just go into rock and roll. Like, I didn't really understand that you could just
Step inside. Yeah.
but you don't need like 9 years of conservatory training to be in a
Right.
rock band. So I probably would have done a lot more in retrospect if I knew how easy it was. But,
You mean earlier or?
yeah, like I
Yeah.
would have, formed my own band and started writing my own songs. But the thing is too, like, not with sort of my first band, but then later on when I started playing with other bands, like I was playing with the Bowery Rhythm Kings, and we had Walter Lure coming on as a guest singer, or Philippe Marcade, who was our drummer, would sing. And or I was singing with, Lynn from the Willies, and like it with those people up at the mic, like it doesn't really seem necessary for me to be singing or writing songs. Like they're just kind of masters of it and doing it really well. And so I was just always having a really good time. And then
So it's a
later
little more social than musical, or am I getting it wrong?
I mean, it was very musical. I wasn't really very social. I was kind of you know, awkward, socially awkward to some degree. But no, it
Well,
was more like
what?
I just didn't even. It didn't really occur to me that I should like write some songs.
Right. And how old were you at this point? What and
Like 17, 18,
okay. Yeah, so it
19.
is early. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Um,
yeah, I thought
yeah,
you were thinking of talking about 20s, but no, that's
no,
it seems appropriate.
and I really was just, I was getting experience, I was getting my chops. I was like learning about touring and learning what it is to play gigs 3 nights out of the week and be in different bands and all of that stuff. And just getting seasoned. And then in my 20s, I continued to work with other people, but I did start to like co-write more stuff. I started to sing and play bass. And again, I did just a lot of like sort of, I guess, journeyman type work of just like repetitively doing that. And by then I was in Austin, and then I was finally ready to write songs. Like it took me a while before I really felt like I knew how. And
Well,
again,
can we go back to 88 when I met
sure,
you?
yeah,
My recollection is not really good, but here's how it goes: is that you were in a band and you guys had cobbled together a tour
I
with
know.
no help from any professional, and really, it was a passion project, and worked your butts off to make this tour across, I think, the East Coast. And your drummer had substance issues and
Yeah,
couldn't make the tour, and it's sort of like they either cancel the tour or you grab this crazy person Carrie who
nearest
claims
available drummer.
claims he can play the drums and is free that summer in 1988.
Right.
And I just
We
remember
knew each other though already, right? Or no?
yeah, we knew each other from this, all of our mutual friends
Right,
from
right,
the Lower East Side of New York City.
right.
And I just remember the first because I rehearsed, and it was very different music, and I had to learn how to play to this type of music, music that didn't come naturally to me, and I, because I'd been playing drums since I was in high school. But I remember the first gig, I just was like so keyed up that I played super fast, and I
Oh, I thought
remember
you did a
Frank.
good job.
What?
I thought you did a really good job. We were lucky to have you. That band was like Spinal Tap on wheels. I mean, just like disorganized and disasters. And I look back on that as a sort of really undisciplined experience. But I thought you did great. You were really
But
good
that
on the
first gig, I remember Frank after the first song turns around and go like, slow down. And I'm just like hyper. But I think by the end of the tour, I guess it was okay. By the end of the tour, I was probably a better drummer with the band. My mother was dead. And you had seen the infamous, my mother's uh, shower, which
Yeah.
was had a glass door and all the empty beer cans to the top. And I
Yeah.
was in Atlanta. We were on tour when my father, well, somebody said, you got to call home. And my father called. And I finally got that call that my mother had succumbed to her alcoholism,
Yeah.
and I was like, what do I do? Do I leave this tour to go to her funeral? And like, because
Well,
it's,
you could
and I
have
was like, F
both.
it, man. I was like, I'm going to stick with my commitment, and see it
Good of
through.
you.
What?
That was good of you.
I was
Although,
like,
maybe you didn't want to go anyway, but
I don't think I want. I've been mourning my mother's death before
right?
she was dead for years.
Done
Yeah,
this already.
yeah. I was like, I've already said goodbye. You know, it was every time the phone rang, I thought, is this it? You know, is this
Yeah,
really it? And it was usually a hospitalization or something, or she'd crashed
yeah,
the car or something like that. Or one time I was sleeping on a couch in Fifth Street in the Lower East Side or whatever, or East Village. And the
yeah.
cops like are knocking on the door at 3 a.m. They're just like two doors down on Fifth Street. And they're like, call home. I'm like, okay, this is really it. You know, the cop. And
Cops,
like, I don't think I'm on any, like, how did they know I was there? How did the
right?
cops
That's
came to
weird,
tell
man.
me to call home? And I was like, all
That's
right,
really
she's really
that is
dead.
really bizarre. I
And
agree. Like,
it
what
was a
the hell?
nurse taking care of
Yeah.
my mother saying, your mother is
Oh well, the
trouble.
nurse told them where you were.
Uh,
That's what happened.
But it was also like, I've known this forever, and like
Yeah,
she's got,
yeah.
you know, she's got a roof over her head, and she's got all the options. So that was quite a summer of '88.
Oh my gosh, I know. It was crazy. We went to New Orleans. I remember that we stayed at the Hummingbird Hotel, which was this like ramshackle flop house. You could stay for $20 a night, and like Todd Abramson had told me about that place. He was like, "You got to go have breakfast there," and I had been down there before and stayed there, and I loved it. Like I loved its seediness and Tom Waits qualities or whatever, and man, that place. But
That wasn't the place that was leaking and it was raining. Was
oh,
that another?
probably. I think we
Yeah.
actually left and we moved to like an even seedier hotel, like a block or two away. And of course, those are no more. Post Katrina, everything got renovated. So it was kind of like the good old days of staying in a seedy place in New Orleans.
And I remember, I think we went to my aunt's house
Yeah,
in
in
Maryland.
Annapolis, right?
Yeah, and there was
Nice.
like a town called Bowie, and like
Yeah.
the band was like, oh, we have to go to David Bowie town.
That's hilarious.
And we actually went to see Elvis's we went to Graceland.
We went to Graceland.
And I didn't leave the van. I was I was like so depressed or mental or whatever. I was like, I can't leave the van.
We went to Canada. It was an international tour, actually. We went to Canada.
Officially, yeah. We did step across the border.
Yep. Yeah, some of us may even have had substances they shouldn't have taken across the border. Just saying.
You don't say. Well, hopefully the statute of limitations has run out.
I don't know if it has. I'm not sure about
I
that.
I do remember that. I guess the alcohol percentage in the beer in Canada is probably still more than U.S.
Yeah, it always was, as far as I know. I haven't been to Canada in a while, but yeah.
All right, so
that messed up every band I was ever in that went to Canada. Got completely fucked up by the alcohol content of the beer. Like Lynn got arrested in Montreal for spray painting graffiti. Yeah, it's like, this is not New York. You can't just do that here. This is freaking Canada, lady. And we had to get her out of jail.
It seems like entrapment. Like, hey, we'll inch up the alcohol content. These rubes from the U.S. will come and drink the same amount they've been drinking all along.
Right?
And
it's just 2 beers. Yeah. I think they were really nice, and like they didn't press charges. They were just like, you can never come back to Montreal or whatever. So, but it was funny, and so many funny moments like that on tour. But yeah, we went to my parents' house also in Rochester, New York, and there was some like dispute, and Frank was gonna like leave, and I guess he got as far as the Rochester airport, which also was international. Like you could go to Mexico, from Rochester, and then he somehow like didn't leave and came back. But I don't remember what the details were, except we kind of had an onstage, dispute.
Wow, yeah.
Pushing and shoving type of scenario. Which,
in
this band, it was the women pushing and shoving the men. But if you never
I don't remember that. I probably
Well,
blocked it out.
Frank, I mean, he was a train wreck at times, but also
Yeah.
really funny. And he's the one who worked and booked the whole tour. But
Yeah, I was impressed by
yeah.
him. Also, he was a chemist, you know,
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
in his day job, and I thought
Right,
that was
exactly.
impressive.
Well,
Yeah.
molecular biologist, but yeah, yeah.
Okay. Close enough.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And he insisted on me calling him Fly that
Well,
summer. I don't know.
that's when that started. That when in Rochester, when we had the band fight and he went to the airport and didn't leave, he came back and that's when he said he was changing his name to Fly Francis, which, you know, we all laughed at because like it was just really ludicrous for like this white Italian dude from New York to be having a rapper name at that point in history. Like now it just seems kind of,
It is
I don't
show
know. I
business.
still think it's silly. Let it be said.
I was just like, look, okay, I'm gonna express. I feel a little embarrassed saying Fly, but
Right.
I can only guess that I respected it. All
I
right,
don't
so
think I did. I don't
no.
know. I don't think any of us took it seriously. We were like, yeah, right. He'll be off of this trip in 24 hours. But no, he stuck with it.
I think you're right. And he
Yeah.
stuck with Fly after it?
Yeah, like for a while.
For a while.
Like a few years.
What the,
God. I'm sorry.
I keep thinking, you know, it's got to be, all I can think of is Midnight Cowboy. My name is Rico. Call me Rico.
Right? I know.
But okay, so I digress. That was our 88 tour.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are we going fairly chronologically, or have I skipped over some cool really stuff?
Care.
What?
I don't know. Maybe.
This is the lack of sleep episode.
Fine.
But I think we're going good.
I think I might grab my coffee, which I left over at the other spot.
All right.
It's the lack of sleep episode. All right, here we go. Coffee.
All right, I've got Spindrift. I'm addicted to this stuff. I love
that. I just had some the other day. It's really good.
Yeah, I have a shower full of empty Spindrift cans. So
Gary, you really have a problem.
I have to go to SA, Spindrift Anonymous. I'm powerless over Spindrift. The carbonated fruit water.
Right.
You know, and it has life-damaging consequences. My wife said, you've got to give up the Spindrift or you're on leaving. All right.
Not again. Well, you know, I think it's good though, because like now being self-destructive looks like, you know, staying up too late or drinking too much Spindrift. But when we were younger, it was kind of different. So we can now have this like comforting, you know, nouveau riche self-destructiveness. I think it's progress.
Yeah. It's
age appropriate self-destructiveness.
Exactly, like age appropriate. We've got training wheels and bumper cushions. All right, so where are we in your career at this point? Well, what happened after the tour?
We came back to New York and I was kind of fed up with everybody that I was on tour with, except I don't know, maybe I was even a little fed up with Carrie, but I don't know. I was like, I'm back. I got to get out of this. And I think I quit the band, even though you were also not really like in the band permanently.
No, I was like, look, you guys, I feel bad that you've done all this work for this tour, and I'm going to help you get through this tour. And then, this isn't really my music, and I'm not really a drummer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't crazy about the project. Just for a variety of reasons. Like it was just always kind of a mess, Spinal Tap like. And
so did we go over are there any DeWilly stories or anything?
Well, yeah. So let's see. I came back. I joined Uncle Wiggly and wrote a bunch of songs. And then I was also playing in the Bowery Rhythm Kings with Mitro Valsamis and Philippe Marquet, and Danny was our guitarist. And, you know, that was just really fun. I was having a good time and playing at like much better venues than with my previous band. So I kind of just got snapped up by a bunch of better bands and, you know, started doing like real shows, you know, at Maxwell's, CBGB's, places like that. And that was great. And then I was asked to join the Willies, which I wasn't expecting that to happen. And I was really stoked because they were like my favorite band. And And that was fun. It was just fun. We all got along really well. We were all good friends and we played together well. And shows were really, really fun. We got signed to kind of a crappy European record label, but it was an independent label and we wanted that. And then things just got fucked up because our guitarist Leon had a drug problem. And that was just kind of part of who Leon was. Like, he had been in a car accident and his face had gotten like smashed. And apparently before that, he wasn't an amazing guitarist, but like after the head injury, he became an incredible guitarist.
Wow.
And then he spent all of his plastic surgery money on drugs. So he became a heroin addict at the same time. And it just, and that's what people told me when they were kind of explaining like how Leon is so fucked up.
So what the money for the plastic surgery, was that a settlement?
Yeah, I guess.
Settlement money instead of fixing his face, he fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could see if you looked at it, like his face was not aligned correctly. Right. And so yeah, that head injury had given him this like gift. And even now, if I listen to the material, even as a guitarist, like I can, listen to Jimmy Page and I might not be able to play that, but I can understand basically what he's doing. I still don't understand how Leon did what he did, how he played the way he played. I'm like, what? Huh?
What band was that? I missed.
Well, into Willie's, yeah. So,
he's into Willie's?
Yeah. So
okay. Is he still with us, Leon, or?
No, he died in '92. So yeah, that's why we broke up, because his heroin abuse was just getting worse and worse. And so we were recording a record, and we were at recording with Wharton Tears, and then Steve Shelley from Sonic Youth, Lee Ronaldo actually was producing it, and it just came out bad. Like, it wasn't Lee's fault or anything, but it was Leon's fault, because he was like not showing up. He was showing up really fucked up, and like we had all played the songs hundreds of times on tour and in frequent shows, so there was really no excuse for like making mistakes while recording, because we all knew the material very well. And it just, the record came out really bad. Nobody in the band liked it. They felt it didn't represent our sound, and they were right. Like, when I listen to it now, I'm like, this record sucks. And it's unfortunate because we, could have been. It really
was there,
cool.
You just didn't capture it, right?
Yeah, it was there. We didn't capture it.
Yeah.
But then it was also stopping being there, because Leon was, very much part of the lifeblood of the band. It was just really based around his guitar playing in so many ways, in addition to Lynn's vocals. So
that sucks.
Yeah, and so
but it's nothing new, but it still sucks.
No. So like in the spring of '92, we just kind of had this band meeting, and we were like, we feel like the band kind of sucks. By then we had kicked Leon out. We had tried to replace him. We were trying to get Richie Lure, Walter's brother, and Richie was my friend. So I was trying to get Richie in the band, because basically he was just a nice guy. And he was a good guitarist, but it just wasn't the same. Like, he could play, but Leon had a special kind of chaos. And so we just never were able to capture that again. Yes. And also Lynn had vocal nodes. She wanted to stop screaming. So there was that too.
That sucks, because it sounds like you had this peak moment and things started to fall down, and then you started recording. So it seems like a shame, that you had something. Well, especially, I mean, it's fascinating that the guy's guitar playing got better after the accident. I mean,
I know it, and it's really interesting.
All right.
There are like actually multiple cases of brain damage causing people to become brilliant musicians, like Kristen Hirsch, I think, from Throwing Muses, or Tanya Donnelly. I can't remember. It's one of those two women. Has a childhood head injury that makes her like write songs all the time.
Wow.
Yeah. And I actually feel like that's kind of the case for me too, is that, after some stuff happened and I got a concussion, like music definitely changed as far as songwriting. So, I think the whole like brain damage as a channel to your own creativity is somewhat underrated, I suppose.
It's not always a bad thing. It can be in your favor. And is when you write, do you usually write on guitar or keyboard?
Yeah, I do. I wrote the first album on bass because I didn't know how to play the guitar, and then, I mean, I understood and I could play some chords, but I couldn't play guitar. And when I did, it sounded terrible because, when you first learn the guitar, it just sounds awful for like 2 years. And so I was like, okay, well, I started just kind of messing around with guitar and realizing like I hear my songs on guitar because there's just so many more possibilities for chords, and those can lead you in different places with melodies. And I love that. And so I wrote a bunch of songs on guitar, and then I was like, okay, I can't play these songs I wrote. And I can either, have someone in my band do this, or I can learn how to play my own songs on guitar. And that's what I did. And it was hard because I broke my wrist really badly when I was 15. And the doctor actually said I wouldn't play bass again, ever. So I did, but guitar was painful, like physically just really painful at first because of my wrist and because of the compensations I make in my hand, which for bass, it's not a big deal, but I can't really put my thumb right behind my fingers. I have to, kind of play that way. And I've just always done that. It's never been a big deal. So yeah, it hurt. And, it sounded awful. And so I just stuck with it. And now I feel like I'm good on guitar, and that feels like a huge accomplishment to me because, it's actually hard and it takes work.
What about
So,
keyboard? Do you write anything? Do you still play keyboard or no? Or because some people, they usually write on keyboard or guitar, I guess.
Well, I so far am just writing on guitar, and
Okay.
but I'm always thinking like, well, I don't know. It kind of depends. So like writing, what is writing? I'm a multi-instrumentalist. So yeah, I write on both. But what I did for this album is I said this album's going to start from the keyboards. And so I got this old analog synthesizer from the 80s. And I used that to just construct this stuff. And then I built all the songs around the analog synth, right? But you wouldn't know that, so I don't think that's really writing on the synthesizer. Like I just kind of made these synth spines, and then I wrote guitar stuff around that. So, I write on both.
Okay, so these are all your solo effort, and it's all under Luminatrix?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How many Luminatrix albums do you have?
Well, there are 3, and then I'm finishing the 4th album right now.
Okay, and when did the first one come out?
The first one came out in 2017.
Alrighty, cool. All right. What kind of kid were you?
Difficult, according to my parents.
Okay.
Well, I was quiet. I read a lot.
You mean like prose or stories or journaling or?
Well, everything. Well, I mean, I didn't know it then, but it turns out I have Asperger's. So I was like a really quiet kid that really just read all the time, or I would like do art stuff. I was very much just in my room because being social really wasn't very comfortable for me. Plus other kids thought I was really weird. And I would have that, I could usually like make a friend with the other like really weird smart kid, but that was about it. The other kids just did not like relate to me at all, except as a sort of a freak. So I did a lot of creative stuff. I would just like make creatures out of paper, write poetry. I decided really early on I was going to be a writer, like a poet or fiction writer. And I'm grateful for that, because that probably just like saved my life in many ways, to not like dive into the music scene and be like, okay, I'm going to go for it with rock and roll, which is just so dangerous, like so hazardous, especially for a young woman. Not even with the sort of like Harvey Weinstein issues of the whole industry, but just with, drugs, alcohol, the lifestyle. That was hard. And I'm glad I had other interests, because a lot of my friends died.
Yeah.
A lot of your friends died.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, there's that time where, as a teenager, where taking risks is the natural thing, but then it can be a dangerous environment where people can not come back from those chances. But it's nice that you're still here and kind of creatively on fire. I mean, that's my sense,
Yeah, it
is
is.
that you're
Right.
sort of bursting with excitement about your work. I mean, so you sort of feel like you're at a fertile creative place now. That's what I get a sense.
Well, I am, but it's kind of like more of just of a permanent place now because, actually to like heal from my youth and everything I did to make things worse during rock and roll years and
Okay.
to run from my actual issues. I mean, I was also in therapy. Like I started therapy at 19, but I was still fucking up. And so it took years, it took years of more therapy, yoga, other disciplines, meditation. And I think that I had to do all that stuff before I could really creatively unlock things because I had a lot of impediments to creativity.
Self-imposed or?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
used to think they came from classical music, and now I don't. I think it's actually more related to Asperger's. Like there's a sort of rigidity you have where it's like it's sometimes hard to think outside your box because when you have that, you have a hard time understanding what the box is, right? And so when you finally figure out what the box is, you need the box because it's your only frame of reference because you don't have one from other people in the same way that like normal people do. So once you know what your box is, you want the box to stay the same. And so I think part of it was as a classical musician, I kind of didn't realize you could just write songs so easily. But also I just didn't believe in myself because of my toxic childhood. I believed in myself internally, but because of just growing up really different, I didn't believe in myself in the world, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I ever had the really terrible self-esteem, but it was more like I couldn't translate me to outside of me. So yeah.
So when you found that box, almost like did it come naturally from within, or did you see someone who was doing that and say, I can do that? Or did you,
well, I
and
mean,
was it too many possibilities? And then you realized, oh, I can do this. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it was almost accidental because I was in a band here. I guess the last time I played with them was like around 2003, 2004, and they were a really good band. And I had also been with them in Austin, and that's kind of how I ended up here. As they were from here, some of them, but I just sort of moved here and got to be in the best band and had fun. And then I just kind of had a moment where I was like, I'm leaving. I don't want to play other people's music, and
Okay.
so that just kind of came out of the blue.
Yeah, sort of
But I
came
didn't have
naturally.
any music of my own yet, so I had to really just learn how to make that,
Right. So it came naturally that sort of now is the time where yeah.
Yeah. But then it took, a few years for me to really understand.
And the box you describe, is it that there were too many possibilities and here's my process and here's how was it about a box of the way you come about, was it a process?
So the box of life, I'm sure developed at a really young age. But yeah, it's too many options. Like my mind has too much to choose from, and it can be overwhelming at times because I think some sort of filter may be missing.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, there's literally like a world of possibilities and you have to direct yourself through them. But then the box is also limiting because you kind of don't see what you can do outside the box. And I just
but it can help you finish a project sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's different now. I mean, now I have my whole method, but like what brought me here is I just was working on songwriting, but I had kind of just given up and I was just kind of like, whatever. And I ended up playing bass for this guy and he's my bass player now, but I don't know. I just like Trump got elected and I was super bummed out and I was like, all I have is playing bass with this dude. I need to just show up every day or I'm going to lose my mind because the world is really scary right now. And so I just kept showing up and playing his music. And then something just got triggered. And I just wrote like 20 songs accidentally from just
cool.
Being in this other project and being just miserable with reality.
Right. So, I mean, I've always found that like creatively, it's always been therapeutic for me, Mm-hmm. My childhood wasn't the the
Yeah, I
most
know.
stable. And so having a creative outlet really helped stave off any kind of substance engagement
Yeah.
or any kind of like mental. I still so it's always been therapeutic to me, even though, you know, I came to New York to sort of make it professionally, and then that didn't happen. It got depressed, but then and you know, filmmaking was what I wanted to do, but when that was too expensive with film, you know, I did music, but it was always therapeutic. It was always a matter of
Yeah.
like how to process life and feelings and stuff. And I
Right.
think that's a legitimate thing. I think people can think, oh well, it's got to be, you got to be famous, when it really, it's, I mean, it's a healthy way to cope. One friend of mine said it's, you know, keeps us civil, you know. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
civilizing
Yeah. I
process.
mean, I'm not sure we have a choice. You know, I think that's how we cope, and that's why we're artists. And I don't know if we can choose that or change that. I tend to think no. You know, we're just
Yeah.
our kind of freaks or whatever.
Well, sometimes I'm like, okay, this is it. You know, my best work's behind me. I'm stopping. I'm quitting. I've quit so many
Right.
times, and I've had, you know, on Bandcamp, like just
Yeah.
put like a black, you know, cover of like, okay, it's over, and like the final. I think I have a March
Right.
22nd or something of like it's over, and then a few months later, it's like, okay, some lyrics will emerge or a song will emerge, and
Right.
it's like, okay, it starts playing me. Like sometimes I can get myself
Yeah.
to write a things to do list. Like, okay, I'm going to write, and
Yeah.
then some, and I'll write it, and then sometimes it'll take me, and
Right.
it's so
Yeah.
nice to, because I never thought of myself as an artist. Once in a NYU class, they were like, "Why are you an art?" I was like, "I'm not an artist." And then it's nice to have those moments where I'm, you know, it's over, and then suddenly it'll emerge.
Right.
It makes me feel like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe I kind of am.
I'm kind of weirdly envious of those moments because I don't have them. Like, but
They're
you know,
rare, but
I
yeah.
I can always access my music now, but I still can fall off too because I don't know, like last year before the pandemic, I was like, have I stopped doing music? I'm not sure because I was just working like 70 hours a week at a stupid day job, which now I'm really grateful for because I get unemployment. Like, yeah, I got a stupid day job at just the right time. And I
Yeah,
worked tons of overtime at just the right time. So
yeah,
now I can actually like survive on my unemployment.
yeah.
But at the time it didn't leave much space for music. And when I first started the job, I was still rehearsing the band every week. And then like two of the guys were like, we're about to go get famous, bye. And then I'm like, okay. And then they got fired from their band the next day. And I was like, all right, guys. And I just didn't even try. I'm like, I didn't want those guys in the band anyway. So I was just like, I did nothing. And then I was going, have I stopped doing music? I don't know, you know, so I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I went back to doing it because it
Yeah.
seems like it's always there. Like I now I can access this whole world of songwriting whenever I want, but my life still has to be set up right for it because it's consuming. Like you're saying, the song writes you and it takes over and there's no space for that because I'm already a single mom, you know. So if I'm working a job between that and single mom, I
A lot.
have to work to make space for music, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes when I would be on my 9 to 5, that's when I would write my verse.
Right.
I'd be like,
Yeah.
someone at work is being difficult, and this is like junior high, man. I mean, we're
Yeah.
all in our 40s or 50s or whatever, and people are acting like junior high, and it's pissing me off. I'll just write it down in a
Right.
verse, and then maybe during the weekend or maybe when there's time off, I'll put some music to it. And I would always separate like my working and then my creative, and then it was nice for me to have that. Like when I moved and there was a long commute, I would sometimes write
That's good.
during the commute on the subway.
Yeah.
And that was
It's a
and
good
also I
way.
would take a recorder sometimes and sing into the recorder, or
Right.
even I had an answering machine and I'd sing something into the answering machine.
I'm gonna call myself. That's a good way.
Yeah,
You have to grab it while it's passing by or it's gone forever. And I find
yeah,
if I don't grab it, it's like my subconscious says, oh, you don't want that. I'm gonna stop sending it to you. So if I don't actually just stop whatever and write it down or record it or whatever, sing a
yeah,
little thing into the phone, it won't happen anymore. To me,
yeah,
that's actually the key to songwriting is responding to your own subconscious. You know,
yeah,
if you do that,
definitely.
then you'll get more songwriting done.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when I'll have an idea and I don't capture it at that moment, and I'm like, oh, well, I'll capture it again. Like if I've recorded both of those versions, I'm like, no, this first one that just came naturally, like I started by improvising, so because I
Yeah.
always wanted to be in contact with that voice and be
Right.
able to be free, and that and I always wanted to be on that songwriting mode
Yeah.
rather than performing someone else's music. So it's
Right.
like, and sometimes when you're in that space where you're receiving, um, um, part of your mind is sort of on the sidelines. And then sometimes when I said, I'm
Yeah.
kind of trying to recreate that, I'll do a worse version. I'll sort of like sanitize this other thing that was exciting. So I started to make these like improvised pop songs where I'd have the lyrics in front of me, and I just would sort of, I would record me just making it up at the time. And
Yeah.
it's kind of, like Jandek I was like, look, if Jandek can do this, man, anybody can. He
Oh, I
sort
think
of,
it's a great way to work. I actually do a lot of that.
you do?
Yeah, I think it's really valuable because it's
Yeah,
really fresh, and then you can just like shave and mold the bits later.
right. Because I would often like record my improvisations of like, and usually I'd be like, oh, this is the melody. And I'd go back to an earlier recording. It's like, no, this is the melody. It's way
Right.
better. And I
Yeah.
don't know how I did that, but it just sort of came out. So I
Yeah.
think like recording, like when you're writing, I mean, the Beatles didn't have recorded, so they had to memorize their songs. And I guess, but this helps me now because I think I have to get back to that place where I'm just recording me riffing and coming
Uh-huh.
up. But it's hard because it's in my apartment and I don't want to disturb my neighbors.
Well, there's a thing you can get. I think it's called an attenuator, and that allows you to have like the full volume of your amp without a loud volume in your house.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, attenuator. And there's various things that have been designed for like bedroom recording that you can do to deal with that. So,
Okay,
it's
cool.
cool. Um,
So the
yeah.
sun is coming in your window, and there's a line of the sun, and then it's
I
sort of
know.
coming with the line over here or over here. All
Yeah.
right, sleepy time. All right. So what have we not covered that we should cover?
Let's see. I don't know because I didn't. I don't know. Don't remember.
You didn't make rehearsal.
What?
You didn't make the rehearsal of the interview. This wasn't rehearsed.
Right. I didn't make the dress rehearsal. Let's see. Well,
Is there any music? Is there any music or anything inspiring you today, like a TV show or a movie? What?
Yes, definitely. Well, I like a lot of music today. I like Billie Eilish a lot. I think she's really great. Her attitude's really great. Her songwriting's really great. Her and her brother, their music is awesome. And I like,
That
yeah.
sounds like it's recorded at home
but
and it's
really
very
good.
intimate. It's very intimate and
like intimate. And I think it's really cool. And she's definitely been a huge influence on me. And it's like, it's great to be into stuff that's happening now. And that kind of gives energy. And like sometimes my kids will turn me on to music. That's good. And they turn me on to 21 Pilots, who I also like. Like he's a guy that plays a bunch of instruments and he'll actually do it live. Like he'll play guitar and synths together live, and it's just him and a drummer, and he's like really, really good. So seeing that inspires me. I'm also just really inspired by comedy. Pete Davidson, who I know you're a fan, like I love Pete Davidson, and just SNL and that whole like Monty Python. To me, that's a form of enlightenment. It's like being with the flow. Like to do that type of comedy, you have to be so in the moment, And so,
did you see his movie, Pete's Dave?
Yeah, I love the movie.
Is it good?
Oh, it's good. Yeah, it's really
I
good.
haven't seen it.
Go see it. Yeah, it's really good. And I think he wrote it and directed maybe, but he definitely wrote it. And
yeah, because his dad was a fireman and died in 9/11 and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know. Well, he's going to be one of the greats. Like he's going to be one of the great comedians of all time. I mean, he's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love Kyle Mooney.
Yeah, Kyle's great. It's a really good cast right now. Actually,
I just love Kyle. And like Kyle and that other guy would make movies together. I don't know. I love Kyle because he also came on as a new cast member. It's like he wasn't getting any, I don't know. So I'm getting those SNL things too. And I'm like, I guess we're of the age where we're still into SNL. I'm not sure if what else? Or do you want to, I interrupted.
No, it's okay. I don't remember what I was going to say. Oh, you were asking about influences and
stuff you're into now, even if it's a movie
I
or
like,
a.
I like Muse. I guess they're kind of like not really new anymore, but they were like an interesting rock band that I liked. Movies, I don't know, what are movies? I used to go to movies. No, I
Oh,
watch them on TV now, but yeah, I don't know. I can talk about like, well, the band is going to be, there's finally a stable live band, which is nice, and we're going to be doing some shows in Santa Fe, and more like internet shows is what I have planned, but also live shows. We tend to do like radio appearances here.
okay.
And I don't know, it's really nice to have a live band. Like maybe we'll record the next record live, and I'm just like grateful for that because it helps me a lot. And but I don't really want to tour. Like I've like done so much touring that I'm kind of just that spoiled artist that says, I'm gonna do like 3 or 4 shows a year, and they're gonna be like artistically pure, and they're gonna be like a happening, and no one's gonna tell me what to do. So that's my mentality, and my approach is really just. And then I'm planning to make some vinyl. I'm gonna press this record on vinyl, and I feel like distribution and promotion is a huge issue for musicians these days. So I decided to really like take a note from our friends who used to drive around with a van full of records,
Right.
taking them to record stores. I was like, hey, I can still do that. And I bet record stores are actually really hungry for like independent vinyl, because so many musicians aren't making product at all. And I feel like making physical product is really important. And like personally, I don't buy CDs. I won't do downloads. Like I'll only buy vinyl, which it might sound snooty, but it's just because it sounds better to me. It's more fun. I like the process. I like the ritual. So, that's my approach. I'm just gonna like drive around and put records in record stores, and go up and down the West Coast, because that's fun anyway. So
Yeah, that sounds cool.
yeah.
What's your favorite Monty Python skit?
Oh boy, that's tough.
Or who's your favorite cast member?
Well, they're all really good. Probably John Cleese,
Yeah.
but I really like all of them. I'm kind of over Terry Gilliam just due to him being a pain in the ass director. I used to like his animations, but like
I
Eric
love
Idle.
Brazil.
I always really liked Eric Idle.
I love Brazil, but I don't know
Yeah,
if there's
that's great.
any other Terry Gilliam movies I like. My favorite
Yeah,
was
the other ones are terrible.
Michael
Terrible movies.
Palin. I love
Yeah,
Michael Palin.
I know, he's great. He's
And
great too. Yeah, they're all just brilliant and just so smart. And
I love that they took all this high culture. They're all from
yeah,
Oxford and Cambridge, and
no,
then
they all talk for.
they took the wind out of all this sort of highfalutin
One.
stuff and just poked
Yeah,
holes in all these things. Plus, it
right.
was just educational for me as a kid, like to
Yeah,
see
exactly.
the so I would do a report because I'd see the Spanish Inquisition, and then I'd research the Spanish Inquisition. Then I would do a report on it. I mean, it opened up. This was before the internet,
Yeah.
so they would have
Oh,
a
right.
soccer
We have to go to
players
the
of
library.
philosophy. They would have philosophers having a soccer match or whatever,
Right.
or like they'd visit Jean Genet or Jean-Paul Sartre, and I'd be like, who are these people? And I would
Yeah,
like see them
true.
on shelves. So it opened up a world to me, and it just and it invited you into this like elite, I guess, that academic world that can be
Right.
kind of elitist, especially thinking in the UK. And back
Right.
then, when there was more of a hierarchy, it democratized all this sort of like precious
Yeah.
intellectual
It's like
property.
distilled all of the stuff you needed to know about as a kid. Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
how we got our information, or like from the radio, or although some of it was not as healthy of an invitation. Like I just will always kind of wish I hadn't picked up that one cool looking book about the Velvet Underground when I was 15. That was probably
Yeah.
like a really bad influence for me, but whatever.
You made it though. You're still here.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And what's your spiritual practice? Do you have
Um,
a regiment or no?
well, I was a committed yoga practitioner for like, I don't know, almost 20 years. I became a yoga teacher, and I had to do all that stuff to just like be okay eventually, So I got really into yoga, and I was very disciplined and rigid. I would practice yoga 2 or 3 hours a day for, years and years. But then that can become a sort of addiction in and of itself, or like a brace or a crutch that you have trouble leaving behind. And so I'm right now not really doing that. I was meditating a lot. I'm really not meditating. I think like actually music and writing lyrics is my spiritual practice, and my spiritual practice lately has actually been revolved around like self-knowledge, you know, understanding myself. And so I've gone back and I've been reading my journals from the 80s and 90s in
Wow.
New York. I wrote
Cool.
down everything for a period of like 5 years. I started hanging out with visual artists in Brooklyn because musicians were freaking me out. I was going to become a junkie. I was like, I need other friends, guys, you know? So I was hanging out with these Williamsburg visual artists, and they really taught me a lot about art. And so I decided to do this life as art thing. And I'm like, I'm going to write down everything that happens to me just factually. And
How old were you at that point?
Well, I mean, I did it for like 5 years. So, you know, it was in between about like 87 and 92, 93.
Okay.
And I never read them. I never read the journals at all, but I still have them somehow. And I read them. That's been my spiritual practice during COVID, is reading my own journals.
Yeah.
And it's been like the most amazing healing thing I could ever do. And in fact, if someone said like, what is the one word of advice you would give to young people, it'd be like, write everything down for a while and don't read it. So that's been, boy, it's like, I can't believe I survived. I can't believe I made it through.
Yeah, I think gratitude comes, and
I
think gratitude comes naturally.
Oh,
I
so
think.
much. Well, I mean, I died. Okay, first of all, I'm reading the journals. I'm like, oh no, I died. And I like just blew it off. Just like went on with life. But like clearly looking back, I'm like, okay, you know, I died. I like overdosed on drugs and I freaking died.
Wow.
And after that, I was not like, I can tell from the journal, like my whole thing changed.
Wow.
I was like cranky. I was really happy before that. And, you know, I just got like drugs that were not, I think it was fentanyl is most likely what happened.
Holy shit.
And now I look back and I'm like, it's plain as day, you know, because I was a kid. I was like 18 years old. I just didn't know. I didn't realize how harmful drugs were. And most of my friends would never have even helped get me drugs. Like even Leon, the junkie, like he would never have gotten involved with that with me, because that was bad vibes, you know. It was taboo for people to do that. But then some other people did. And I ended up, I never feel like I even got close to having an addiction, but just even playing with it, even experimenting, very harmful stuff. So like looking back at that and realizing I died, you know, like, and I actually had major, like I lost the use of my legs for a day or two.
Wow.
And I just repressed it all, because that was terrifying. That was terrifying. I didn't know what was happening. And so I repressed it all. I just like stuffed it away.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna walk leaning on my boyfriend for a few days. But in my journal, it was like a couple weeks before my legs were really like functional again.
Wow.
And so it's really amazing what you can just kind of stuff away when it serves your desire to avoid healing. You know, it's your self-protection or whatever, repression. So powerful. So I didn't know. And, you know, I've got some like nerve problems. Like, I'm like, why do I have this nerve pain? And, you know, do I have fibromyalgia? What's going on here? And I wasn't trying to find this information. I'm not even sure why I started reading these journals, but just that, you know, just going back and being like, oh my God, I died. And then I repressed that I died. And I've been living with that. My psyche, my consciousness has been living with that for like 30 years, right? Wow. And so it's been a huge unburdening, and it's also been just very, you know, sad, of course. Like I'm sad that happened, because I feel like I would have had a whole other life if that hadn't happened. Also, I think that, like when I was saying brain damage as a portal to the unknown, I think that's what happened to me. I think I actually got brain damage by being like dead, you know, for some who knows amount of time, because I was by myself. My boyfriend had gone to work. And so you weren't in a hospital setting when this happened? No, I was just at home. And, you know, we just, like, I wasn't even shooting heroin. Right. I was, you know, and I wouldn't think you could overdose, but yeah, like I'm saying, it's pretty clear I got fentanyl. And I just can tell from my description of what happened. And, you know, I know now a lot more about everything. And so, well, you got a new life. I mean, yeah, I did. And it took some negotiating to understand, but yeah, I didn't even know that I had been through this experience, and at such a young age.
Yeah.
So truly, it's something I feel extremely lucky to have survived, recovered from,
Yeah.
reasonably happy with life, feel like I don't have much to complain about. That's like miraculous to me.
And
That
you made it through 2020.
Yeah.
And you made it through you know who.
I know, I don't like to say the word either. I like to
Yeah,
say that word.
it was forbidden in our house too, but we'll
I know.
all good,
Don't say that. Don't talk about that person.
Okay, so I guess we can wind it down. We're a little over
fun.
an hour. That was fun. You cool with me posting this? You want to?
Yeah, I think so.
You want to sleep on it?
People? No,
what?
you can post it.
Okay.
We said things about Frank being like disorganized and whatever, but I can live with that. I'm fine with him, no, because he's always known I think that. So okay.
I don't think that's. I think most people are disorganized.
Yeah.
Or most creative people are, but.
Oh, I know. You should see my messy room right now. I'm like, what do I do? My violinist is coming over because I need to borrow an octave pedal because I'm finishing this album. And
okay.
I have to clean my house.
Well, me too, but the wife's away, so I can enjoy some messiness.
You and Asmodeus can do your Goetia exploration.
No,
I want to interview you next time. I want to be like, so how did you get interested in the Process Church of the Final Judgment? Like, I want to know all that stuff too. I need to interview Carrie.
Well, it was like I was obsessed with Helter Skelter, but only the parts where Manson was interpreting the White Album, because I loved the White Album. I thought it was my favorite. It's my favorite album because it has the happiest stuff like Martha, My Dear, and Honey Pie. Or Honey Pie, and then it's got the scariest stuff like the end of Helter Skelter, and then long spooky stuff, and then it's got that's the only album I need for a desert island. But I was obsessed with reading only those parts where Manson was like translating the Bible into the Beatles, like being the four horsemen, or not the four horsemen, but breastplates of gold are their guitars, and that they have snakes, and it's the chords of their guitars. So I was obsessed with that, and so I was always interested in the darkness, probably because of my mother's insanity, that she would the world would end even though we'd have a roof over our head. But as far as she was concerned,
ended a while ago when we still have a roof over our head.
Yeah, but I mean, I got into her darkness.
Like Manson was definitely an area of interest among our friends, and I kind of rebelled against it at the time. I was like, everyone's into this. I'm kind of not going to be, but now I'm like fascinated.
It is fascinating, and it's like it's like I was never an athlete, but this is my and I was never a sort of adrenaline junkie. Always do something that's risky, but I would go into these dark places that would scare me, and I thought that would this.
Yeah, me too. I read a lot of Stephen King as a kid. Like, it seemed helpful.
And I think it's sort of like you find in order to you re-experience that fear, and then maybe like learn how to either master it or demystify it. And
well, I'm actually really fascinated with some stuff that came later, like the fact that 2 albums were recorded in that house by Trent Reznor and Marilyn Manson, as you probably know, which to me, that's insane. Like, Trent Reznor's take on it is like, I went in there and I, recorded the Downward Spiral, and I basically like got possessed, and then my life sucked afterwards. And it's like, really? And you expected another outcome from this process somehow? I'm like, Marilyn Manson, I don't have any sympathy for him. I'm sure he knew exactly what he was getting into. But the point is, 2 fuckers recorded albums there. It's like, what?
I know. It's a machismo. It's a like, I can go into I'm a manly, I'm not afraid of you, and I can go into the darkness. Exactly. But I think and it's also it's branding too, it's marketing too. It's like
it's true. It's actually really effective.
People are they're gonna write about it, and I liked Quentin Tarantino's take on
Oh, I
the
love
man.
that.
I
I
thought
know. It's like if there had just been a couple of like macho dudes here, none of this would have ever happened. And he's fucking right too.
so funny because he's like, "F you guys, man. I mean, you did
I'm
this."
sure it would have been so easy to take them out. You know, if you just were thinking outside of your fear and you were like, oh, I'm a trained martial artist. Fuck this, right?
I love how Brad Pitt or whatever has a flamethrower and pretty much
God,
like fries the Sadie or Susan Atkins character until she becomes fried like the doll, the fetish doll in a Trilogy of Terror.
Right.
It's reminiscent.
That little thing that runs around.
Yeah, we're of the generation where.
Love that movie.
That movie's great. Dan Curtis scared the hell out of me. That was the first scare.
Little doll. I saw that as a kid at my parents' house. I was like, what? That little doll.
This, Chucky, started earlier.
That was just so much better though.
But it was like I would watch Dark Shadows, and then I went to see House of Dark Shadows. Yeah. And I was like, 8 or whatever. And I guess it was 1970. I was 8. And that scared the hell out of me when Julia finds out that Barnabas is not in love with her, he's in love with Maggie, and then she gets jealous, and then she's been treating him for his vampirism with this potion, gradually giving it to him so he can go out into the daylight, but he uses that daylight to flirt with somebody else, and Julie gets pissed and like gives him a whole dose, and then he becomes really old, and that like freaked me out. And it was like Dick Smith, the makeup guy from the 70s. But I just ran from the theater and I had to hide in a station wagon. So it's like, Yeah.
I met Stephen King. I was like such a big Stephen King fan that I met him when I was 12. I think I freaked him out. Awesome, right?
Maybe you inspired a short story or a book or a character.
Well, I came up to him holding a copy of Firestarter and I was like, can you sign this? And I definitely looked like the character. And I would be kind of freaked out if I was like a young looking 12-year-old too. I mean, that freaked me out, like kids are reading my books. What the hell? Like, it's not really supposed to be happening. That was awesome. And yeah, I would try to find the scariest stuff I could find.
Did you see the documentary on the Process Church?
I don't think so.
It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. Really? You can find it. Yeah. It's fascinating.
There's tons of other little tidbits because, like Death Valley 69 by Lydia Lynch, and Sonic Youth totally references all of that. And so I was like, oh, let's dig further. And supposedly Kim Gordon's brother was one of Manson's disciples. And
what was his name? Do you know?
Well, I don't know. I haven't been able to find out. I've tried. And it's implied that she met Manson when she was 14. So kind of interesting,
That Lydia did?
Her brother traumatized her, and her brother apparently did all this weird shit to her. Implicit that he learned from Manson. So very interesting,
Holy mackerel.
I know.
Curiouser and curiouser. Yeah, right? It's that doesn't, I've never heard that. It doesn't sound likely, but I'm gonna check it out.
No, I mean it was on something semi-official Sonic Youth type of thing. It's not this isn't fringe Sonic Youth science or anything.
Or okay. Well, the tentacles go, it's all started when Crowley did that ritual with what's his name in the desert. He brought about and then aliens started coming. I'm not, I don't know. I should be. I'm not an expert at this. What?
Bowie was into that stuff in the 70s. He talked about it in an interview, and then I haven't been able to find that interview again. But he was all talking about doing all this weird Crowleyan magic. But I don't know.
He's just name dropping. I don't know how into it he was. He's just into his drugs.
I found it pretty believable. I was like, it does seem like he's actually doing this, but it's Bowie, so who knows? Who knows what the truth was?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm I'm that person that's well, I won't have that demon tarot cards even in my house because even if it's probably not true, I'm just not even gonna take.
No, I think I only have it because I can, because can handle it.
Right.
Meaning that
So you know
it's
that.
because my subconscious isn't, there aren't, the demons in my subconscious are have already been tamed, at least at the moment.
And they need some company.
And I found that if I'm afraid, it just feeds the
Oh,
demon.
well, no
And if
doubt.
I give the
That's true.
demon love, and I'm not speaking of any specific, I'm just talking about the darkness within myself and the self-destructiveness within myself, and my own guilt or whatever, or feeling like I need to be punished or that I've done something wrong. I've
Right.
sort of exercised those general things. I don't think
Yeah.
things have real names or anything. They're all projections. And if my
Right. Exactly.
conscience is clear at this moment, and that I can bring love to any of the darkness, then I can heal them, because I think
right, like
we're
we
all
might not even know what's in the darkness, you know.
it's terror. It's a frightened
Right, like for me
child.
with
It's
my
a
death,
what?
like exploring my own death that I didn't know I had. That's for me doing that same work, because that's my darkness, and it's like I didn't even know it was there. Well, of course you didn't. It's your darkness, you know.
And it's just, if you can bring love to the fear, you have hope of healing it, because I think that darkness is just a frightened child that needs to feel safe.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
but you do have, I'm not immune to it. Something could, but within my own home now.
Right, exactly.
I don't, that could happen again, but it would come from the outside rather than the inside. I think I've
kind of using it therapeutically,
yeah,
as a healing tool, and that's a whole different thing than using it to try to get power over other
people. No.
I've never you. That
what?
Just using it for purposes of non-power, I would say you're already protected, I don't think it can get you in trouble unless you're trying to derive power from it, truly.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find peace to it within my own soul. I mean, the irony is, I'm not, I'm trying to make peace with my own darkness.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's a whole other thing. I think that's great. A great tool for that.
Yeah, because I think if I can be okay with, like, if I don't have the self-destructiveness within myself, it's going to be less likely that I'm going to be for someone on the outside being self-destructive to me. I'll feel a right to set a boundary if I can go, like, if I don't feel like I deserve to be punished.
Right.
I mean, I think that's what the 12 steps do. They make peace with your conscience, and that you can forgive yourself. And I think it's what?
I said I'd agree with that from what I know of them. I haven't ever done that program myself, but from what I've heard, that is, I think, what it does. It helps you make peace with your subconscious.
As you make amends and so forth, and all these things that I think, trouble people, that they have not been in line with their own conscience.
Yeah.
Even though they never mentioned, if you can be okay with that, then there's less likely that you're gonna be vulnerable to an outside malevolent force.
Oh, that's true.
And the more likelihood you'll defend yourself and feel like you have a right to stay safe. Like, I think a lot of people don't feel that. I don't know if we're getting off track, but it is interesting.
No, not at all. Growing up with an out of control parent, they don't teach you boundaries. They don't know what boundaries are. You grow up not even knowing boundaries are a thing, and why do I have so many problems? And you have to take baby steps to even catch up, and you never even catch up with the people whose parents just taught them what fucking boundaries are, right? So, I mean, I grew up in an environment where no one in the family, it seemed, wanted me to have boundaries, except in ways that help them, like be quiet, right? But yeah, we have to learn all of that stuff, and it's hard.
Yeah, and I think I'm just re-experiencing the terror I had as a child, like,
definitely, yeah,
and just kind of going like, okay, maybe I can get maybe I can, because I just think it's it's Freud, but it's also just natural that people.
No, I mean, it's pretty standard trauma therapy.
Yeah,
it's like the whole principle of trauma therapy is based around re-triggering yourself within a safe space, you know,
Yeah.
and because it's like stuff that at the time it was too scary to process, so people stuffed it away, and that's why you have PTSD, right? And until
Yeah.
you process it, it's not going to go away. But if you can sort of evoke it in a safe place and hold
Yeah.
space for that fear, you know, then you can move through it. Then it'll process, and it'll leave you, you know, it'll stop driving you. And that's what saved me. That's literally saved my life, is just doing that kind of work, you know? Um, so I think it's really valid. And I mean, there's even actual like forms of clinical therapy based on that. So
Yeah. Because I don't. My interest in the darkness is to overcome it with
yeah,
realizing that there's just terror and fear
right,
behind it, and that
right,
love and safety is the antidote,
right,
and that
right.
just like I ended another conversation with, because I just think, you know, it's like fear and love, and like I guess you
Yeah,
need fear and terror if you're really at war, and there's physical, but then if you're terror and there's no immediate threat, then
mhm,
that's not helpful.
yeah. Well, terror is meant to like stop you from being eaten by a bear. Basically,
Right.
it's very primitive. You know, it doesn't really mesh with the modern world.
Yeah.
So, or it meshes with the modern world in like weird, unexpected, non-productive ways. So yeah,
It sells newspapers and gets clicks.
well, I also think that artists, I think artists are, most of them are born as artists and our nervous systems are different, but that's just my like autistic approach to things. But you know, I think that we're more susceptible. I know I'm like way more susceptible to being traumatized than normal people seem to be. So, you know,
Yeah.
that could be from having had a difficult childhood. It could be from just being more open. You know, I feel like I'm very open, very
Right.
sensitive, too sensitive, like trying to damp it down, trying to like add layers of gauze or whatever,
Yeah.
because it's a lot, you know, and that's a pretty autistic way to think. But yeah, I don't know.
But I think also the work that people, that artists make, can sometimes awaken within the audience, or the person, the listener, things about themselves that they might not be aware of. It can be
Mm,
liberating, and
yeah,
it can
definitely.
make them feel less alone.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. In the best cases, it does do
yeah.
that. And that to me is what art is all about, you know, is that reaching out through the darkness to show you you're not alone. And that's why I love SNL. I'm like, these people are just as twisted as me, only they're like more talented. So yeah, knowing you're not alone is like awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's like more you can do with art other than that. I mean, you can do transcendence. I'm
Right.
not there yet. I'm just like, let's try to know we're not alone and tell others they're not alone. Yeah, that's a good place to start from.
All
Well,
right. Cool.
thanks
I'm
for
gonna.
this. Really fun.
That was good.
Awesome. All right.
You're still up. Everything's cool if I post, or you want to?
Yeah, go ahead and post. It's fine.
Okay, I'm
It's
gonna
fine.
sleep on it,
All
and
right,
I'll
cool.
send you the link when I post it.
Awesome.
All
Thanks,
right, that
Carrie.
was a blast.
Yeah,
Take
for me.
care. Be
Right on.
safe.
Later.
Love you. Bye
Love
bye.
you too. Bye bye.